Board members, can we have you back, please? Yes, I was. Thank you, Jim, for noticing. Board members, we're looking to get started. I'd hate to call you by name.
Yes. All right. Hearing no objection, the motion. Back on, we're back on, board members. Consent calendar is up next. Any motions from board members? Board member Bogus, I believe.
So, Member Moss, I
Sorry.
want to make certain that I'm looking at the right thing. Just a moment, please.
And for the new board members, there's an information item first, which is those under $100,000. So that's in backup for information. And then there's the, sorry. Oh, Member Klein, thank you. Oh, you're muted. Sorry, you're muted.
I would like to pull number 2, and I think that includes 2.1 as well.
All right, sorry, list those again.
So number 2,
That is the entirety of number
Contract.
2 or a particular contract?
I can tell you specifics if you want.
Okay,
Um,
item number 2 is pulled.
Chair, could you please tell me what number we're on? Because I have 2 consent calendars in here.
Oh, well, so item number 5.2 has been pulled. 5.1 is information on contracts that don't require action. 5.2 is the contracts
That's what I wanted
on consent for approval.
And so new board members, if you want to pull any of those for discussion, and then we would look to pass the rest of the consent calendar, and then we'll go back to the individual ones that were pulled out of the consent calendar. Does that make sense?
It's a pulled item.
It's a pulled item?
It's not 2.1.
I'll wait till she calls on.
Okay, Member Klein, is that all of action item 2 to include 2.1, the rigorous interventions, or just the contracts listed under item 2?
She's muted, Chair. I am not seeing.
Member Klein, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, gotcha.
Okay. It would include both 2 and 2.1.
Okay. Okay, any other motions? I see lights from Member Davis. Perhaps Member Hymas. I lost the order. Was Hymas first? Or? I apologize, I'm still learning to read my screen. Member Hymus,
I move that the board adopt the consent calendar, except for the items that are removed. I don't know how to word that, but
except for item 2 that was
except for item
pulled.
2 that is pulled.
Is there a second? Any discussion of that motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Should we pause for a minute with some tech questions?
I can't access through my
She's pulled
civic
2,
clerk
she pulled 3 and
the
4.
documents that we're referencing,
Oh,
but,
What's unfortunate is.
yeah.
let's pause for a second then. Sorry, members. We'll take a look here before we move for a vote.
Board members, are you ready to proceed? Are you ready? You ready? Are you all ready? You good to go?
Are we all okay on tech? Board members, okay.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry about that. Okay. Wow.
But not the actual civil things.
All right.
Thank you, Chair.
Member Carey, did you have a question? I think what we had on the floor was a vote or a motion by member. Did you make the motion?
I did make
did.
a motion, and there's a second to the motion, and I'd like to speak to the motion if I could, just for some clarity.
Please do.
For clarity's sake, when the motion that's on the table is to approve everything on the consent calendar other than item 2, which is where the general contracts are. So essentially, we are voting to approve the meeting minutes right now. Okay? And then, from my understanding, 2 will be brought back in for discussion, the contracts.
Correct. Member Lear?
And further clarification, I thought it was 2 and 2.1.
Correct. 2 includes the sub of
All right,
2.1.
thanks.
That's right. So that's been pulled. Everything in 2 has been pulled. Motion on the floor is to approve everything other than 2, and which includes 2.1, which consists of the minutes. Motion's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion of that motion? Member Vargas?
I just want to clarify that, do we need to discuss the agreements for review before or after this motion carries?
We can do it after.
Okay.
So they've been pulled, and yeah, good procedural question.
For review.
Point of order.
Point 1 has been pulled, right? So sub item 2, including 2.1, have been pulled for discussion.
I think she's referring to 5.1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I thought you were still, no problem. So item 5.1 is an information item, which is there a question about that item? Right. But we don't have to vote on that.
So I had some questions is all.
Yes. Well, let's,
This is
so
not an
that's
appropriate
not up
time.
for
I
a
just don't
vote.
understand how if it's not being pulled, I don't understand procedurally how that goes.
Yeah, let me try to explain, and Sybil will correct me. So item 5.1 is an information item that does not require a vote. And so we can ask questions about it. Those that require action votes are items 2, which includes 2.1. That's been pulled for discussion. And then action item 3, which is just the minutes. That's the one that Member Hymus has moved to approve. So we can do that and then come back to the action items that were pulled. And if there are questions about the information item, we can address that separately. Does that sound correct? Okay. So pending item, I'm still learning too, thank you. So pending motion then is to approve action item 5.3, consisting of the minutes. If there are no further questions, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, say no. So that passes, thank you. Okay, let's go back to action item 5.2. The request to poll was made by Member Klein, which items did you want to address?
Okay, so I'm looking, I don't know if you can go back one screen, or you just where I can tell you from there. Okay, so it would be number 3 on that list, the DO 400, and then the Ed Connect number 5.
Okay, discussion to DO3, Member Klein, DO3 400.
I just wanted more information. It didn't really give much information other than we were increasing the amount by another 104,000. It says school land trust / information technology. But if we could just get some more information about what exactly that is or what it's for.
Thank you, Member Klein. And this pertains to GED testing, so this is through our adult ed. Sorry, am I doing the wrong one?
No, it's the.
Oh, I'm sorry, I pulled up the. I think
No, you're on
Deputy,
the wrong.
I think Deputy Jones is going to answer it while I'm fiddling around with my,
Okay, now go to.
Go ahead, hold on,
go
let's
to
get
the
them
approval.
Good morning, Chair Moss, board members, Scott Jones, Deputy Superintendent of Operations. Under this position is our procurement section, led by Director Adam Hurd. Jared Felt, directly to my right, is our Information Technology Director. Chair, to answer Board Member Klein's question, specifically this relates to the development, implementation, and sustainment of the School Land Trust website. Over time, as we have built and identified additional requirements, it requires additional money to hire either more programmers or to recruit and retain programmers to meet the overall intent of the School Land Trust website to provide one access location to all of our principals, schools, school community councils, to meet all the requirements of the rule that governs the School Land Trust program. Does that answer Board Member Klein's questions, Chair, or question?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
thank you. Board Member Carey.
I'm not sure if this is in order or not, but I would like to make a motion to postpone.
Let's see, I'll turn to our, I think that probably is in order as if it relates to this particular item, correct?
It would be all items in item 2, action contracts agreements for approval.
So everything that was pulled, probably in order, I think, but would require a second.
I would second that motion.
Motion's been seconded, so the motion is to postpone consideration of all the items that have been pulled in action item 5.2, correct?
Yes, am I
Yes, and
permitted
you
to
can
speak? to-
Yes, I just need to restate the motion and then back to you to address.
And this is not meant in any other way than to say, I received the materials yesterday, voluminous in nature, and I don't think it's a reasonable expectation to have, well, I'm a slow reader, but to digest all of this information, much of it legal in nature, and then have us, or I'll speak for me, to request that I vote on this with less than 24 hours of consideration to review these matters, which again are significant in terms of money, and the nature of the materials themselves do not lend itself to easy reading. It is technical and it is legal. And so I would ask for a postponement of consideration of these matters until, to allow for additional time for myself and other board members to digest it.
Okay, thank you, Member Carey. I think I see a light from Member Davis.
Yeah, just, can we get some information about the postponability, like just which of these are time sensitive and which are not, just so we know what leeway we have? And then, Chair, this may be inappropriate, but since we are adding in a few new things here this meeting, I think we probably should note that our board materials come a week ahead, but contracts can come 24 hours ahead because of the nature of the negotiation and giving purchasing as much time as possible. So we might need to look at if we need to make a change, then maybe we need to look at a future agenda at making a change in that. Otherwise, we'll have this problem every single month because currently it's allowed to come 24 hours ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Member Davis. And that has been discussed, and I think that's a very important procedural preparation question. I'll defer back to Deputy Jones or anybody that might address the time-sensitive nature of any of these and what the effect might be of postponement.
Yeah. Chair, all of them are time sensitive, especially since if they are postponed, it would, likely be another month, February, before we would have to put them in place. We cannot take any action or provide the funding, so to speak, to ensure that we continue operations along any one of the contracts that are in front of the board at this time, sir.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion to that motion? Sorry. Is the motion to bring it back to next February or to the next legislative board meeting?
I think the motion would be as soon as possible, but that one that permits the time needed to review the material. So I would be happy with either one.
All right. I think the earliest available, as I understand our board procedures, would be January 19th, so next Thursday. So if that's a friendly amendment to
Yeah.
your motion.
Okay.
Member Lear.
I just have a question for the maker of the motion, and that is, are there any, to me, looking at these, they're of different complexity. Is there any one of them that you think is more, that you're more concerned about than others, or is it more just a general concern?
Yeah, I think it would just be, and I agree with Board Member Davis, and I did receive the bulk of the packet in advance, and it was reviewed, but to receive these yesterday, my concern is just that we're dealing with fairly large sums of money, and I think that if it's not just reading it, but it's understanding it and speaking about it and making sure that all the issues are understood rather than this push to just get it done. And so I would say that this applies to all the matters currently listed as an action item under 2. And to finish that statement, I would just say that, I haven't heard any specific harm that would be done if this board collectively decided to postpone it. It sounds like there's this general, well, we can't move forward, but are we missing deadlines? Do we miss out on the money? Do we miss out on this opportunity by a week?
Let me put that back to Deputy Superintendent Jones, and I
Yeah.
think we have another board member comment or question
Right.
after that. And if you could address, I guess, the modified motion to do it next week.
Yeah, so Chair, if I may, and I'll get more specific on what amounts to risk if these are not approved or addressed by the board today, is, as you all know, we're starting the legislative session. As part of that process, we have to provide all funding that has not been encumbered or is obligated by way of a contract or, some other obligating instrument. So this exponentially increases the risk that between now and the next time that you meet, we report truthfully and transparently always, we would report that this money that is tied into these contracts is unencumbered and therefore eligible to be swept by the legislature. I mean, it's just that time of year. I mean, I wouldn't be saying this if we were in June or July. This is why I was adamant that all of them are a priority. And then I also want to emphasize with all the board members, new and existing, that we do not spend money just to spend money. It's an obligation that needs to occur to continue to support what has been determined to support the board's direction and all of these, but they also, again, serve as encumbering documents so that when Deborah Jacobson, our Assistant Superintendent of Operations, submits the unencumbered funds to the legislature for their consideration, that we decrease or mitigate the risk of those funds being swept. It is just that time of year. So, and if I may, The process is one that the board directed, that process being that contracts, and you articulated this, but it specifically was decided by a previous board that contracts would come to the board members for their review and consideration, or to the board secretary by 5 PM on the Tuesday of the week of the board meeting. So I can only assume now that the next opportunity that you're going to have is not in a week, it's the next board meeting, right? And then if that process is not changed, either here today, we will continue as staff and as directed by the board to continue to follow that same process so we could be right back where we are before. And I do appreciate and understand the concern about only having the time, but it's not a staff-driven decision on when those come to the board. It was a previous board decision. So I would just respectfully request that if the board deems it necessary, that we do look at that business process, because we will be right back considering that, you know, all I'm aware of now is that your next board meeting with a consent calendar is not until your February meeting. Or I do realize you're meeting weekly, you know, when you start the session, but this could take up a lot of that time, and those meetings are really designed around giving you maximum time to focus on legislative things. So, you know, I just offer that to you for all of your considerations as a time management and process management aspect.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent Jones. I think Member Klein was up first, and then Member Reel, and then back if Member Carey wants to finish out. But Member Klein?
So we're not going to vote on that motion?
It's under discussion currently, so it's been modified to suggest a postponement to next week, but feedback from Deputy Superintendent Jones on whether that would actually be possible, given the consent calendar is not typically on those. So does that answer the question?
So I don't have any comment to make to
Okay.
that motion, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, Member Reel.
Thank you. And I'm just wondering if I'm safe to assume that all of these contracts, by the time they've reached our agenda for approval, they've gone through the state RFP process?
Deputy Jones?
Chair Moss, the answer to that is yes.
Yeah. Having gone through the state RFP process numerous times for different projects, I know how thorough and arduous and how that process really, to me, is a safeguard in knowing that when it gets to our agendas, that it's already gone through a very thorough process and understanding that budget. So thanks.
Thank you, Member Reel. If there are no further comments, I'll indicate, I got my packet on Tuesday, and that has been the standard practice. It's pretty close, and so it's a great procedural process point that's been raised. If there are no other members, oh, I'm sorry. Member Hart.
And just as a point of information, anything that's listed with information, please review that ahead of time and then call. Even if it's last-minute calls, staff is available to answer those questions. I know I had questions at 10 o'clock last night, so make sure, SOS calls are very much welcome to get the questions answered prior to board meeting, even though it may be late.
All right, thank you, board members. With that, the motion on the floor is to postpone consideration of item 5.2 to the next available board meeting in which consent calendar is scheduled. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say no. No? No. Would all those in favor please raise your hand? I have Member Bogus, Member Carey, 2. Those opposed, please raise your hand.
I would postpone as well.
Okay, thank you.
3, thank you, sorry. And Member Booth is a no, so I believe we have 3 ayes and 12 noes, correct? Okay. Oh, 11 noes, thanks, we lost Jenny, okay. Okay, so that motion fails. Back to consideration of the items that were pulled under 5.2. Any other comment to those items? Member Klein, you identified one. Was there another one that you wanted to address?
I have issues with Ed Connective, but I don't know that we definitely need to, if people have other questions about it, I would just going to vote no on that, as well as on 2.1.
2.1 being the turnaround
Yes,
interventions.
the CSI.
Okay. Any other board member comments or question? Member Bogus?
So as I look at number 3 on my sheet here, I just was confused as to why Pearson receiving the check was not included in the information. Is there a reason that happened, or?
Deputy Jones or any
Chair-
designee?
Yeah, Chair Moss, if I may,
Please.
you're asking why, so Pearson did receive the check
Yeah, my
So,
question is, why
okay.
isn't it on the thing? Because
as a backup item information, or? Yeah, I'm not sure.
So in my, and maybe
Okay.
I'm looking at the wrong document, right? This is the document I'm looking at.
Right,
But in a synthesis document, there's no indication here that we're contracting with Pearson. And when you
Right.
go into the other documents, you have to actually kind of look for that information. And we're writing Pearson a check for these services, and I guess I would just like to see the clarity of, if we're dealing with subsidiary agencies, that's fine, I get it
Oh,
that
I
we
see,
do that, but
yeah.
I want to know who's getting that check at the end of the day.
so Pearson
Deputy
will be
Jones?
paid. Yeah, and I believe that that's what happened, unless Deborah or Adam can come up and clarify that. But Pearson would continue to receive payment because we already have an existing contract with them.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Does that
I think
answer
I
the question or
understand.
follow-up, Member
no.
Bogus?
Yeah, that answers my question. I would just, in the future, and I don't know how
Okay.
one would go about doing that, I would love to know who gets the check.
Okay, we can add that as additional information on this.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I see. I think I understand what she's asking.
Thank you, I appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am, yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Jones. Member Hymus?
I have a motion if we're ready.
Floor appears to be yours.
I move that the board adopt agenda item 5.2, including sub, whatever, 5.21 of the consent calendar.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion to that motion? The motion is to adopt.
Actually, sir, may I
Sorry?
say, may you consider please saying approve rather than adopt?
I was gonna-
Because,
yeah.
anyway, that's just part of the internal controls and making sure that the board we have record that you approved that, rather than.
With that clarification, the motion is to approve agenda item 5.2, including agenda item 5.2.1. Any discussion to that motion? It has been seconded. If not, board members, please vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No,
2 noes, I believe. Member Carey, Member Klein. Yes, I will raise it. Although, the ayes, please raise your hands. Have online, Randy, Member Booth is a yes. And all those opposed, raise your hand. Member Green, Member Carey, Member Bogus, and Member Klein, 4. Okay. So that motion passes. Thank you. And thank you for the discussion about process. That's a very important discussion I think we need to have, so thank you.